Hello everyone and welcome back. This is going to be a strange tale about two brothers that have gone down in the history books as having the first recorded case of hoarding, and possibly the worst. These brothers would eventually cause their own untimely deaths. Stay tuned. This story starts with a pair of first cousins, one a Manhattan gynecologist named Herman Collyer, and an opera singer named Susie Collyer, a couple that can trace their lineage back to the Speedwell, one of the first boats to reach America in 1620. This couple would give birth to a total of 3 children, the first child, unfortunately, passing away at just 4 months old. The 2 surviving children, though, would be 2 boys, Homer and Langley Collyer. Little did the brothers know they would make headlines, but not in the way they would imagine. The brothers were born into a wealthy and educated family that had a residence in Manhattan. The home itself was a 4-story mansion in an upscale neighborhood. Both parents of the Collyer brothers were quite quirky, but Herman was by far more bizarre than Susie. At the time, it was common knowledge in New York that Herman would row his canoe to work and was often seen walking home with it in hand. After some time, Susie would leave Herman. His eccentrics and odd behaviors seemed a bit much for her taste. Their divorce would occur in 1919, and the boys would stay with their mother in the 4-story mansion. While their father moved away, the brothers would have advanced their educations and proceeded on with their careers. Homer, the older brother by 4 years, would become an accomplished lawyer, which would be fitting for him given his family's upper-class status. Homer was graced with being a quick-witted and bright kid, and it showed, graduating from Columbia University. Now, Langley was no slouch. He attended Columbia University as well and studied engineering and chemistry. This wasn't enough for Langley. He would venture off into music and would eventually become an accomplished pianist, playing professionally at Carnegie Hall. So it seems both were very bright and seemingly accomplished young men. This isn't until the deaths of their parents. Their father would be the first to pass away, leaving everything in his sons' names, and just 6 years later, Susie would face the same fate, doing the same and leaving everything to her boys. By this point, with both parents gone, the brothers were in their mid to late 40s, with little to no knowledge of living on their own, with the 2 also never being married. The death of their mothers seemed to send the brothers into a downward spiral. Throughout the course of the next few years, the brothers would come down with multiple mental disorders and coping mechanisms. These losses may have triggered feelings of grief, abandonment, or insecurity, leading them to seek comfort and security in their belongings. Lots of these belongings, of course, were inherited and were priceless in their eyes. The brothers would become paranoid of everyone. The vast fortune that was left to them had to be kept safe and locked away. It is around this time we see the brothers start to begin their hoarding obsession. The brothers did try to make an attempt to live a normal life after the death of their parents by teaching church school on Sundays and proceeding further into their careers. But eventually, Homer would lose his eyesight in 1933, prompting Langley to become his full-time caretaker. This was the tipping point for both Collyer brothers. Around 1932 is the last time Homer would be seen publicly. He was eventually escorted into his mansion and cared for by his brother. Langley was only seen over the next few years when he had to make a run to the store. Langley didn't trust anyone other than his brother. He truly didn't trust any doctor that said they could help with his eyesight. Langley would keep his brother's condition a secret and believed he could heal Homer by placing him on a special fruits diet. It didn't work. Eventually, Homer was secluded to a single room where Langley would clothe, bathe, feed, and read books to Homer. Langley was known to hoard books and newspapers in order for Homer to read for himself, in hopes that Homer would gain his eyesight back. It is around this point in this tale that the hoarding and clutter is putting the house in an unlivable state. He became a maze. On record, there were 14 grand pianos, relics and trash piled up to the ceilings, tunnels and booby traps set for intruders, and a grand total of 240,000 pounds worth of trash. One day, Police would be contacted by an anonymous caller on March 21st, 1947. This caller would complain about a horrid smell coming from the daunting mansion and requested the police investigate immediately. Police actually received calls like this all the time about smells coming from the Collyer's house. What made this phone call stand out was the smell of decay. The police would then investigate. After sifting through thousands of pounds of clutter, Homer Collyer would be found dead, upstairs in his room, rotting away in a chair. The investigation the police made on the house would attract thousands of New Yorkers due to the mystery regarding the Collyers. The Collyers themselves were recluses and kept secret about everything. I can see why thousands were staged just outside their house to see what was being hidden beyond their doors and windows. Homer was 61 at his passing, and a coroner's exam revealed that heart disease was the cause of death. Well, what about Langley? He's been absent since the death of his brother. The police grew suspicious and returned to the house. It would be another 15 days until Langley's body would be found, buried and caught up in one of his own booby traps intended for intruders. Police noticed a foot that seemed to be picked at by rats. This is what prompted police to begin uncovering the body of Langley. Langley's body was suspected of being buried there for about a month due to decomposition before being discovered by police. The cause of death was suffocation, and he was found with a plate of food that was intended for his older brother, Homer. Eventually, the house would be cleared out due to it becoming a fire hazard. Multiple distant family members would come out of the woodwork in hopes of claiming the Collyer fortune for themselves. Instead, the state would have the mansion demolished and the property turned into a small park, which can be visited today. It's called the Collyer Brothers Park.